Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is Ukraine War News Update, first part there for the 17th of June 2025. I've just done about 2 hours of videos and none of them had any sound. So that's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back, and I did a lot of shouting as well. I was ranty. Yes, anyway, I'm sure I'll get ranty again because this annoys me a lot. What has happened today. I'm going to then start with, so I did do a breaking news update on what's going on with Iran, Israel, Ukraine, G7. It was both breaking news and a massive hour-long analysis. I will redo that because it's that important. So I will redo that. I might do it as a live actually now. Because I messed up. But anyway, let's talk about Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply, of course. 1,060 personnel lost. It's so-so compared to where it has been. One single tank, 3 troop-carrying AFVs. That is evidently a lot lower than what it has been. The question is, what does that signify? Is there less intensity along the front line? Is there some kind of combination, or is it that there is no huge amount of combat assets such as tanks and BMPs being used? Is it a case that they're using a lot of motorcycles, but then actually only 79 vehicles and fuel tanks, so that's less than we have seen? Is weather playing a part? I don't know, but it's certainly a lot quieter in terms of losses for the Russians here. 20 artillery systems, just a tad below the daily average, and 1 multiple launch rocket system. Okay, we are going to look then in supporting some of the conclusions that I share with you and the data and the figures. Here's, I would say, an anecdote, but actually this is a data-driven thread here from Chriso Wiki. So he talks about a single Russian brigade losing more than 12,000 men, more than 5 times its authorized strength. Its soldiers say they are subjected to violence, abuse, torture, and robbery by their own commanders who throw them into bloody attacks where thousands die. The 15th Separate Guards Motor Rifle Brigade is based in the Samara region, but recruits from across Russia in general, but personnel from at least 77 regions have been listed among the dead or missing, with the largest number being from the Volga Federal District and the Astrakhan region. At least 12,689 soldiers from the 15th Brigade have been listed as missing or killed, and social media posts at least 7,436 were killed, and another 5,253 were reported as missing. This contrasts with a normal peacetime establishment of around 2,000 personnel. Researchers report that 12,689 dead and missing. Of them, 89% are privates and sergeants, 6,860 of the 7,436 killed, and 4,432 of the 5,253 missing. Less than 1% are officers, comprising 92 killed and 47 missing. Most of those are likely junior officers. The 15th Brigade has been involved in many of the bloodiest battles in the last 2 years, including Avdiivka and Pokrovsk. And mentions on social media peaked in August 2022 during the Pokrovsk offensive. Sources highlight 3 particularly bloody episodes. October 2020, Avdiivka and Novobakhmativka, where at least 2,128 were killed. October 2024, Mykolaiivka, at least 152 people died in 1 day. I think that might have been the huge attack, mechanized attack on Mykolaiivka. Was it there? There were loads of equipment that was destroyed and people. Anyway, late in 2024 and early 2025, Novotroitska, at least 6,791 were killed. 1,245 missing. I mean, just incredible numbers. A soldier called Vladimir Zaitsev spoke about the brigade's losses in a May 2024 video, so a year ago, saying, "No one from our company survived. Everyone died. My first day, February the 29th, I arrived here. We immediately went to the front line where I spent 3 days. I got effed up by a blast wave from a mortar. I also got concussion. And the boys were all lost. There is no one alive. If I'm sent to the front line, then my chances are 50-50 because we are sent simply for meat. No one returns alive. No one is left. Those who are in the unit are temporarily alive, and the rest are among the dead. Someone is running away to the 500s, means they're deserting. I would run away myself, but I can't because they will zero me. That is, they will shoot me." According to the independent Russian news outlet Vestka, the brigade mentioned in social media more often than any other Russian unit. Researchers found more than 2,000 posts from relatives appealing to find the missing and complaining about various abuses. So on and so forth. So then it details, appeals from family members, the torture and horrible conditions that the troops have been documenting, so on and so forth. And we're going to join it just right at the end here because it's a pretty long thread where it says, after talking about not allowing decent treatment, the brigade is still suffering heavy losses. In only the first 4 months of 2025, according to Verstka, there were more than 1,700 burials of members of the 15th Brigade, equivalent to 85% of its entire authorised personnel. The 15th Brigade is huge, and continuing losses very likely reflect the brutal meat assault tactics used by its commanders. From being the Russian army's only specialised peacekeeping unit before the war, it's now known as one of the army's most meaty units. So that's, I guess, indicative, but also some pretty interesting data there. There was an article in Euromaidan Press, it refers actually to an Andrew Perpetua quote as well, saying a Russian drone flew into Ukraine's hidden crab gun and exposed $1 billion flaw in artillery design. So I don't know if that's the best way of phrasing that title. I wouldn't phrase it like that, but the point is this. So if we look at the video here, you've got an AHS Crab, which is a Polish self-propelled gun, which is co-produced, I think, with the South Koreans, being actually fairly well protected. You'll see in this video. I don't know what's happened here. Yeah, what we have here is a video that of course that's going to happen. Of course that was going to happen. Thanks, music. This morning's difficult, isn't it? So we have a fibre optic drone that gets into the crack of this protective setup for this AHS Crab, gets in there and then explodes at the front. And then we have another FPV drone, a fibre optic drone, coming in through the woods and getting to the protection, getting underneath it and then into the back, and then that's the end of an expensive piece of kit. Now, these drones are better able to operate, obviously they can snag their lines, but they're better able to operate, in buildings, as we see in warehouses and in wooded areas, without losing their connection to the operator. So unfortunately, you have to protect these perfectly. You can't allow even the smallest of gaps for a drone to get through. We've seen even with the buildings, you think, okay, they're safe in a building, but there's an open window, open door, that's the end of all that equipment. It talks in this article about digging these in. We have seen the Ukrainians do that to some degree. Some of their self-propelled guns have been able to be protected. Sort of, you can build them into maybe an embankment and cover them over, and then that protects it from all sorts, as long as you make sure that there are no gaps anywhere. It says here it's not that. Well, basically, you don't want to do shoot and scoot anymore, because the moving is what gets you spotted and then destroyed. You need to push and bush. So instead of investing gajillions of dollars developing crappy SPGs that barely carry any ammo and often weigh obscene amounts of tons but can shoot and scoot, countries should be investing in ultra lightweight long range towed guns that specialise in push and bush, said Andrew Perpetua. That is, push into a position, hide in the bushes and stay there, and the gunners just need to work much harder to completely cover their guns when they're not actually shooting at the enemy. So interesting stuff. We have a video here of a Russian Mavic successfully rams a Ukrainian Vampire heavy drone. That was out during the day. So you got a Ukrainian heavy drone that seems to have a load of bombs just ready to go beneath it. These IEDs seem to be lined up, ready to be dropped. And I guess it's got an explosive on board this FPV that's hit it. We do know that certain FPVs are just ramming other FPVs or other drones out the sky, but generally they'll have explosives on board. Now, this one doesn't explode, it just gets stuck. It ends up being stuck on a big hexacopter, which will return home. Maybe if the Mavic was also a sword drone, it says here. Well, I wonder if it has got an explosive on board, what you do with that. Like, you bring that home, it's like, who wants to touch that? Like, that's going to blow up in your face. I wouldn't want to be the person who had to go and untangle those drones, that's for sure. So interesting. And then we have this, and this is very worrying. So Ukrainian unit, the K2 unit, has released footage showing the destruction of a Russian BM-21 multiple launch rocket system, which was preparing to fire when it was struck. Intercepted Russian communications at the time revealed panic with calls to take cover and wear gas masks, saying the Grad was loaded with chemicals. And that seems abundantly clear, because that looks, is it ammonia that burns that color? I mean, that is not cool. So we have a BM-21 that was struck successfully by the Ukrainians and ends up exploding in a very telltale manner, or at least the clouds that come afterwards certainly look dubious to me. That is not what you see when you normally blow up a Grad. That is what you see when you hit a chemical factory. So, you know, if you want evidence of Russian war crimes, I'd suggest looking there among all the other many places that we can look, and we'll come to that in a second, because my goodness, there are a lot of war crimes taking place in Kyiv last night and this morning. So Ukrainian MiG-29 jet has destroyed an enemy command post in the Oleshki region. I've shown you so many of these, but just to show you the destructive force of a couple of these bombs, just absolutely shellacking that building. That is no more. And then we have another one here on top of a much bigger building, much higher building. Just look at the explosive power of these. That's another MiG-29, you know, dropping 2 guided glide bombs that absolutely smack into and explode on top of that building there. So they are using these so much more frequently, it seems, at the moment. Now I'm going to show you a Rochelle Senator, which is a Canadian-made, although they are making Ukraine now, Canadian-made mobility vehicle. This time, you know, trying to get its peeps to somewhere, and it's driving on 3 wheels. That is pretty impressive. A damaged Rochelle Senator evacuating Ukrainian soldiers from a front line, even going on 3 wheels. That axle isn't going to be in a very good state, I can tell you, when it gets back to its objective there. But good to see the perseverance of the vehicle and crew. Right, we're going to move on to what was a horrific night, an absolutely horrific night in Kyiv. We have Ukrainian air defense shooting down quite a good number of drones, but a small percentage of a large number can often be more drones than a big percentage of a small number. In other words, even though their interception rate was fairly good last night, 402 of 440, so 38 got through. But actually, 420 were taken down. So 239 shot down, 163 suppressed by electronic warfare. That's not too shabby, but that's a lot of drones, and that's a lot of drones getting through. 2 out of 2 Kinzhal missiles were taken down, one of which was lost in location. So good news there. The Kinzhal's hypersonic missiles didn't get through. 15 out of 16 KH-101 missiles were taken out. Excellent. None of the 4 Caliber missiles were intercepted. 8 out of 9 KH-69-59 missiles were intercepted. That's good news. And the single KH-31P missile was also intercepted. So pretty good stats on both missiles and drones. However, when you send that many missiles and that many drones, was it 32 missiles and 440 drones, you're going to have success. Look at Kyiv at one point last night. These are all the drones slowly advancing on Kyiv. They had a nightmare in Kyiv last night. Here, the claim is that the Kyiv and its suburbs were hit with 175 drones and 14 cruise missiles and 2 ballistic missiles. That is a lot for one city to take. 27 different areas of Kyiv were targeted. 27 areas of Kyiv. Just incredible. And it's heartbreaking. These 2 parents here are sitting there near a residential building that was destroyed by a Russian missile. Their son is under the rubble. They're waiting to see how, well, one presumed that he is most likely, unfortunately, dead. But heartbreaking scenes from Kyiv, really was. The first we heard last night was the dormitory of the National Aviation University in Kyiv was hit and looked in pretty bad state there. That was one of the first places here, and then just strikes throughout the night were taking place, and at one point in the early morning, the dawn over Kyiv, you could see damage here to a tower block apartment, again residential buildings just being hit left, right and center. So that was another example. There were explosions right throughout the night and morning. Kyiv was absolutely hammered. We've got the mayor of Kyiv, Klitschko here, Vitaly Klitschko, the former boxer, saying Russian terrorists attacked Kyiv with a missile carrying cluster munitions, and he lays out the cluster munitions there in order to kill as many people as possible. War crime. This can only be described as genocide, he said. The number of people injured has risen to 114. I think there's 15 dead, but that's probably likely to rise. 68 people claimed here in hospital. And the images coming out of the city are pretty astonishing, very striking, heartbreaking, appalling. Here we have one building that was hit by a missile that took out the floors down to the basement, and then the whole thing just collapsed. Absolute devastation there, just horrendous sights from Kyiv of what took place, just horrific. Here we have a video, incredible video here of a apartment building getting obviously targeted and struck. I don't see any evidence that this drone was affected by electronic warfare, that it was sent off course by air defenses. This is a drone just very comfortably going into the side of a residential building. Bosh. That will have killed people. Kyiv was hit with a deadly Russian missile and drone attack. 15 civilians now confirmed dead. Fires raged across districts. Homes, kindergarten, dormitory were damaged. Parts of the city are without power. Major blaze erupted at Zhytomyr airport, and the rescue teams are searching in Solomiansky. It's not a good morning for those in Kyiv. Here is that drone hitting the building, but from within the building. So videoed from just a few apartments along, and you can see the explosion in the windows of the apartment block opposite as they reflect the fireball that erupted from that drone striking the side of the apartment block there. Horrific. This was a scene early morning in Kyiv, just utter destruction, a haze of smoke caused from multiple fires burning. Tomorrow in Kyiv has been declared a day of mourning in memory of the victims of the massive enemy attack on the capital. Russian missile broke through the concrete floors in the basement of a high-rise building in the capital. The 9-story building simply collapsed, is the claim here. Again, that very striking view of the building that's collapsed. Vitaly Klitschko here at that same building, talking about the numbers of fatalities and wounded. We have just an incredible image there. Anywhere between 4 and 14 people still under that rubble is the claim. And Richard Woodruff, in answer to that picture of those two parents waiting for any sign of their child, I just effing can't this morning. Watching two parents in Kyiv waiting for their son's body to be retrieved from beneath the rubble is heartbreaking. Helicopters are active, search and rescue helicopters, and helicopters that are able to pick up water. So fires are obviously still raging. 50 water drops have taken place, 100 tons of water being dropped on places that need it, as these helicopters are busying themselves with rescuing and saving and trying to minimize the effect of these war crimes. One US citizen has died. A 62-year-old American has unfortunately died as a result of those attacks, and I wonder whether that could expedite American assistance. Zelensky talks about this, saying, I received regular reports from the Minister of Internal Affairs, Klimenko, and our military commanders in the aftermath of Russia's massive strike. More than 440 drones and 32 missiles were used. Kyiv faced one of the most horrific attacks, and then lists other places. Right now in Kyiv, efforts are underway to rescue people from under the rubble of an ordinary residential building. It's still unclear how many remain trapped. The Russians destroyed an entire section of the apartment block. In total, buildings in 8 districts of Kyiv have been damaged. response efforts are still ongoing after the strike on Odessa. Emergency workers are operating on all the sites of impact. All the affected areas are receiving, or affected people are receiving necessary assistance. 75 people have been reported injured. As of now, 15 are confirmed dead. My condolences to their families and loved ones. Such attacks are pure terrorism, and the whole world, the United States and Europe, must finally respond as a civilized society responds to terrorists. Putin does this solely because he can afford to continue the war. He wants the war to go on. It is wrong when the powerful of this world turn a blind eye to it. We are in contact with all partners at every possible level to ensure an appropriate response. It is the terrorists who must feel the pain, not innocent, peaceful people. How many freaking videos of drones smashing into apartment blocks do we have to see before requisite action is taken? It's just damned frustrating. We're going to go and talk about how the US is not giving any arms at all. They're not even selling arms to Ukraine. They are not allowing Ukraine to hit energy infrastructure. That is now formally the case. And they're not putting sanctions on Russia. Look, what is going on that you can continually see this and saying, yeah, these are the people. See those people in those apartment blocks? They're the people we're going to punish here. Yeah, you bloody victims. I hate victims. Just insane. Insane. That was a different rant, that one. Right, what else has been hit? Last night, Russian forces targeted railway infrastructure and grain rail cars in Kyiv and the surrounding region, according to the Ukrainian railways. The Russian Ministry of Defense, meanwhile, said all targets were hit last night. So we have that announcement from the Russians here. Tonight, the armed forces of the Russian Federation carried out a group strike with high precision air, land and sea-based weapons. High precision. You know that building that collapsed? High precision missile hit that, as well as strike unmanned aerial vehicles on military industrial complex facilities of Ukraine and in the Kyiv region and Zaporizhia. That's a lie, because it hit a building. Unless your high precision air, land and sea based weapons, the precision was hitting that building, that residential building, precisely. So either you're lying or you're just complete bastards. I suggest it's both. The strike's objective has been achieved, killing children. The objective has been achieved to kill children. Well done, Putin, you have killed children. All designated objects, including children, have been hit. Russia kills 14. Now 15, injures 100 plus with missiles and drones in Kyiv as G7 leaders meet in Canada and Trump rejects sanctions. This was done because G7 was taking place. This is no coincidence. You don't send 440 drones and 32 missiles into Ukraine a couple of days after not sending nearly as many. You don't do that unless you're trying to make a statement. You know, there is no coincidence that G7 was taking place as well. Interior Ministry says Russia targeted 27 locations and the attack reportedly damaged grain rail cars, 2 postal offices, power infrastructure and all the other things I've already discussed. The Ukrainian foreign minister rightly has said that Russia does this on purpose and it's a signal of total disrespect to the US and other partners while pretending to seek diplomatic solutions. Absolutely. It's a very public show of disrespect for the G7 nations. To which Trump said this. This is just out. What's your response to the drone attack on Kyiv? He said, what was that? When was that?
The drone attack, Russian drone attack in Kyiv. When? Very recently.
Just now. Very recently. Just now. When? You are the president of the United States and of a journalist on an airplane and Jonathan M.S. Pierce sitting in his office on the south coast of the UK know about this before you do. Something is wrong. Take a bleeding intelligence briefing, please. Do your freaking job. Your job, you're supposed to be the leader of the free world and you don't know what's going on. Who is briefing you? Nobody's briefing you. Why are you not taking briefings? Why are you always being told by journalists what is going on? Why do you have a complete lack of regard, a lack of care to become knowledgeable? You don't read, you don't take intelligence briefings, and yet you are the person making these decisions. Making decisions not to sanction Russia, not to give weaponry to Ukraine, not to help the Ukrainians. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I'll have to look at it. His answer is, I'll have to look at it. I'll have to look at it. Can you have a check on Truth Social? You know, using my new Trump mobile. That's a story I need to tell you about. Can I have a look on Truth Social on my Trump mobile to see if anything's happening in Kyiv? Because I don't know anything. These guys are telling me stuff that I should know. You need to check for me. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you on that. I'll get back to you. No problem. I'll find out. I'll get my best guys on this. I'll find out what's happened in Kyiv. And my best guys on this, honest. Just absolutely appalling. This is his answer. Look at this. What do you think, President, about this massive destruction taking place in Kyiv at the moment with the drone strike on Kyiv? What's happened there? Oh, they've killed loads of children. Where's your moral compass, mate? Where's your concern? Where is your concern? It's appalling. Absolutely appalling. Now, Ukraine has struck some targets, I think, last night. Don't know too much. Lipetsk were the explosions there. There's a gunpowder factory again, I think, targeted in Tambov last night, and explosions in Bryansk, over the border in Bryansk somewhere. But really not too much knowledge of what Ukraine was able to achieve. We are finding out that Nevinomysk Azot chemical plant that produces ammonia and fertilizers now is not operational due to drone strikes from the 14th. So that's good news, because Russia really depend on fertilizer exports. So that place in Stavropol Krai is one of the largest producers of ammonia and nitrogen fertilizers, is now not functioning. So I guess that's good news for the Ukrainians. And we have then coming on to, so Trump, sanctions against Russia, let Europe do it and see how it works. Europe have been doing it. Europe on the 18th sanctions package. They are doing it. You can see how it works. Can you do it too, please? This is what he said at the G7. Journalist then says, do you support the Europeans' desire to impose new sanctions on Russia? Does the USA support it? Trump said, Europe is talking about it, but it hasn't done anything yet. Let's see how they do it first. It has done. What are you talking about? They've been sanctioning Russia for ages. They're consistently developing newer and tougher sanctions. The 18th package is looking at finances and hydrocarbons, and they're formally weaning themselves off Russian hydrocarbons. This is happening. What do you mean? Let Europe do it first. We'll see. They haven't done anything yet. It hasn't done anything yet. It's talking about it. It's utter bollocks, mate. You don't know what you are talking about. Take an intelligence briefing. Do some reading. You're so inept. Journalist then says, you told me before that you could impose sanctions on Russia. Why are you waiting? Why aren't you imposing sanctions now? To which Donald Trump says, because I'm waiting to see if the agreement is signed or not. What agreement? I can tell you the Ukrainians have signed a minerals deal, and do you know what? They're doing something about it. They're launching preparations for a potential tender to develop a lithium deposit in the Kyiv region, according to the New York Times, which could be tendered out to TechMet, which is partly US owned, or the billionaire Ronald Lauder. What agreement are you waiting for? A peace agreement? Well, Russia aren't interested in peace. You get them to do a peace agreement if you put sanctions on. They're not going to do the peace agreement first and then you put sanctions on. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. You can't put sanctions on them after they sign an agreement. What a plonker. Then the question is, can you guarantee that Ukraine will not be sanctioned? Because he said both sides are going to take it. And then Donald Trump says, don't forget, sanctions are very expensive for us. When I impose sanctions on any country, it costs the United States a huge amount of money, a colossal amount. It's not just signing a document. So now we're hearing that, Trump delays backing new Russia sanctions over claimed US economic burden and peace deal hopes as Moscow continues to bomb Ukraine. Meanwhile, the UK's announced its new sanctions against Russia. So the UK can do it, the EU can do it, but he says, I'm going to wait to see what Europe do. They've done it. Well, they haven't done anything yet. They literally have done it. They've done it loads. They keep doing it. They do it more and more. Turn up, please. Turn up, Trump. Christopher Miller from the Financial Times. I didn't think I'd be able to get angry again. I've properly got angry again. Sorry, but I'm not sorry. Trump said again he would not impose new sanctions on Russia over its escalating war in Ukraine despite mounting pressure from G7 allies and members of Congress to do so. Trump said he and Zelensky were expected to meet. So this was before the G7. He was going to meet with Zelensky at the G7. Then he left G7 a day early. Meanwhile, Russia is bombing Kyiv. And Trump administration has shelved an interagency working group to pressure Russia into speeding up peace talks with Ukraine, according to Reuters. The effort, established in spring, lost steam in May as participants realised Trump wasn't interested in confrontational stance toward Moscow. Since Trump apparently wants to do everything that Putin wants, there's no point having this interagency group. Trump will just do whatever he wants. Meanwhile, we hear, due to satellite imagery analysis and Swedish broadcaster SVT, we hear that Russia is building up their nuclear defences right next to NATO countries. 43 kilometres from NATO border in Kaliningrad, the exclave, they are building up triple fencing security, enhanced communication functions, new buildings, so on and so forth. 100 tactical nukes are based there. Then you've got another base in Belarus, one in Russia at Novaya Zemlya, and the Kola Peninsula base, both getting extra buildings, protection capabilities. This is Russia saber-rattling and very obviously threatening NATO. Meanwhile, the leader of the free world is like, yeah, no, we won't do anything. His answer is this. I'll have a look at it. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks? You're too freaking weak, mate. Then we hear that Russia wanted to swap 20,000 Ukrainian children that they kidnapped in exchange for soldiers. That didn't go down well. Even Zelensky, I think, commented on that. Absolutely appalling. Yeah, we'll give you back those children for some POWs. New polling, interestingly, though, according to the Kyiv Insider, indicates that American support for Ukraine is going up as Trump is going more towards Putin. Interesting. Let's hope that is the case. Just want to show you images here from Iran, but this is kind of what Ukraine needs to do. Every nation probably is doing this to a degree, but needs to do this in light of distance munitions being so powerful and easy to manufacture, actually. So these drones are relatively easy to manufacture, and they can pack a punch, but storing them all underground like this does give that level of protection. Of course, Ukraine desperately needs to do that. I was going to go and play you Ben Shapiro again, like someone I'd previously have dry spat at. But he's being more and more supportive of Ukraine, which is good news. He's Jewish, so he's very supportive of what's going on in Iran at the moment with Israel, talking about how this is not Russia-Ukraine. This is not a long-lasting war. This is not the way it's going to go. Israel is absolutely wrecking right now. But of course, Ukraine could have wrecked if they had received F-35s and had the kind of support from the United States that Israel are getting. Of course, they did have support from the United States, but that's been stopped, and there's support from Europe, but Europe really needs to step up without the US. And the problem is that it's obviously clear that US is still necessary. Like, Ukraine are desperate for the US. It is obvious that the calculation is that the US is definitely needed. So on the one hand, it's like, well, let's just go it alone. And I think they would be doing that now much more formally if it wasn't so important that the US was a part of the team here. And it could be that the more you say, right, we're going it alone, and G7 goes it alone, and the EU goes it alone without the US on board, and allies generally, that could end up pushing the US into a more isolationist positioning and into the arms of Russia even more. So I guess that could be one of the calculations taking place. I don't know. Anyway, that's enough from me. That's the first news update, the hits and losses from me. I'm going to probably do a live stream update of the hour and 10-minute video I did earlier that was wasted me. And I'm wondering why my throat's feeling a bit hoarse. Anyway, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.